Hey kids, it's Englentine with another edition of Marvel Comics vs. DC Comics. Now the rules are simple. We read and review every issue of Marvel or DC Comics for this particular week. Then we give them a rating. 1 star is horrible, 2 stars is bad, 3 is average, 4 is good, and 5 is excellent. After that we average out the scores, and whoever has the highest score is the best publisher for this particular week. So without further ado, let's get started. The 1-star books, the irredeemable, the awful, the absolutely horrendous run from them. Detective Comics 959 is kind of a jumbled up mess of a book with 3 different storylines going on, and none of them seem to mesh even though they intersect, so it gets a little bit confusing. And I wanted to enjoy it a lot more because you put Zatanna in a book and I'm there. You got my money just for her showing up. Just please make it better than this. And then there were the little things, like the entire team showing up. I like Batman as a solo book. If they want to make Brave and Bold, bring on Brave and Bold. However, this is absolutely a team-up book. And another one was when there is a doctor doing something with a dwarf and she goes full-on gender politics, and I really hope DC nips it in the bud before they become another incarnation of Marvel. Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme number 9. So the last time I saw a story as confusing as this one, over in Shade the Changing Girl, having escaped the battlefield in the alien sorcerer, the various heroes are stuck inside a magic storybook and cannot get out. Seriously, the easiest way to describe the plot of this issue is the heroes did stuff and didn't die, and it looks like they might have actually beat the bad guy. I think, maybe, and then it looks like Wiccan dies. This is just the latest in a long line of badly written and confused issues of this series. Star Wars Droids Unplugged number 1. So this is one of those books that when you finish it, your first thought is, I should find out whose bright idea this was and give them a pop in the mouth. This anthology issue is filled with 3 stories: Probe Droid Problem, Droid Dilemma, and Sabotage. None of them are worth the time. This book is obviously supposed to be funny, but generally you need comedy of some kind to be funny, and there just isn't any in this book. Leave it where it lay and don't waste your time. The Commandy Challenge number 6. Now there have been some good issues in this series and some bad ones. There have been a couple of great issues, but the halfway point in this miniseries turns out to be an absolute terrible one. A series of unlikely events keeps Commandy alive and lets Mac rescue him. And then Commandy and Renzi, who show up out of nowhere, take a balloon to Mishkengard, City of Bears. While the idea of a mobile robot bear city filled with talking bears is kind of cool, it turns out that this place is filled with boring bearing. Ha ha ha. Lots of horrible, boring dialogue in which the bears, and I'm not kidding about this, try to justify a truly communistic existence. I fell asleep halfway through it. Read the story if you're looking to catch them all, but otherwise it's just not worth it. The Mighty Captain Marvel number 6. Now we did a full review of this, so check that video out. It's very entertaining. On to Chef Jack's opinion. He says, wow, this book is crap. It's probably the most boring book I've read this week. Plus, Captain Marvel is not only still portrayed as an angry jerkass who can't deal rationally with other people, but she's actually turned into a sideline character in her own title. The writing in this issue is not just boring, it's stupid. The characterization is flat and lifeless. The plot is so predictable, it's called in 3 pages. It's just a bad book and cannot recommend it at all. X-Men Blue number 6. So why do people even think that Busman's Holiday story is even any good anymore? You know that one, right? It's where the hero is bored of doing his job day in, day out and tries to go out party or take a vacation or visit some celebration and trouble follows him along so he can't actually relax? Well, guess what this book is about? Jean Grey, Hank McCoy, and Jimmy Hudson go to some public festival in Madripoor. Bad guys do bad things and a fight breaks out. Yawn. The dialogue is horrible, the plot is predictable, the art is choppy. That's the best we could say about it. The issue, it's another one that just isn't worth your time. The 2-star books are merely bad. There might be some saving grace that keeps them from being truly horrible. Batman 66 meets Legion of Superheroes, Chapter 2. So Batman's in the future with his team of Legion, and Robin is in the past, or in 66, with his team of Legion superheroes. And Batman's trying to convince the future Legion that they should use more detective skills and hunches as they're piping things into the computer and trying to figure out where Egghead's going to strike. And in the past, basically they're treating Robin, or at least Chameleon Boy's treating Robin, as if he's a primitive that doesn't know how to do anything. Even though they searched out Robin to be a part of the team, they thought he actually had superpowers. It's probably the best scene in the book, where they think he was Jimmy Olsen Turtle Boy. So, the Legion comes off as douchebags in this book. It really. And unfortunately, it really draws a pall over the entire thing. It was only 2 issues, but unfortunately this entire story was such a letdown. Batman 66 meets Legion of Superheroes Chapter 1. I am a huge fan of Batman 66. The books are fun. I get them on the chapters the same way as Injustice 2 and all that. And I was so looking forward to this because I'm also a big Legion of Superheroes fan. So why the heck not? This is going to be awesome. And unfortunately, what I was expecting definitely didn't happen. Now, there's a certain cheesiness to the Batman 66 books. Unfortunately, this was melted cheese. It was not as fun as it could have been. And what we have here is Universo comes to the hypnotist from the future, comes to the past in 1966, and Egghead, of all people, goes to the future, and Batman takes some of the Legion to the future, and Robin stays in the past. And I wish it was better. Black Panther number 15. So the fight to close the interdimensional gates and to find out what happened to the gods of Wakanda continues, as does Ta-Nehisi Coates' inability to write anything but overblown dialogue that bores a reader to tears. Despite this issue being mostly one long fight scene, it was still weighted down by stilted exposition and cute references to other situations and obtuse references, and it just blew the entire comic to pieces. This comic might have managed 3 stars were it not so sleep-inducing. Infamous Iron Man number 9. Well, the good news is Mystic Hoodoo Tony Stark from the future told Victor Von Doom he wasn't allowed to be Iron Man. The bad news is Von Doom is still a huge Mary Sue. The talk between Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm about Reed and Sue and what Doom is up to is the best part of the book, which tells you something right there, given the fight scenes and the fact that the Lady Cynthia Von Doom uses her magic to crash the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier. Moon Girl and the Devil Dinosaur number 20, and I can't believe it's number 20. Fool Killer and Kingpin get canceled after their first storyline, and Moon Girl is at number 20. Oh man, I can believe it, and that's the problem. This book, and I think the art in this book that I read right now, because this is my first issue I've ever read of Moon Girl and the Devil Dinosaur, the art is perfect for the story. Unfortunately, the story is wrong for the character. Add that to the fact that she's written incredibly obnoxious, and I've had 2 daughters. I know that little girls can be obnoxious, but that's not what you want to read about. So, overall, this book where she builds a rocket and travels to another planet light years away, is just ridiculous on many different levels. Decent art. Secret Empire number 5. Alrighty, so I did do a page-by-page takedown of this book. It's got horrible art, bad story, Everybody's unlikable. The entire book is a downer, and I guess they're trying to do the bit where everybody's lost, so we're supposed to feel bad. So the rest of the story is their climb back to the win, I guess. However, I don't think that anybody, obviously there's somebody interested, but I can't see how. This is the only decent panel or page in the entire book, almost. It's just bad. It's a horrible story so far, with horrible art. I mean, literally, nothing is good in this book. You almost have to think this was planned. This is what they wanted. They just wanted to make a bad story with bad art. Congratulations. Good job. Spider-Gwen number 21. So Matt Murdock, the kingpin of crime, continues his war with the spectacular Spider-Gwen. Most of this filler issue deals with Harry and Gwen dealing with homelessness in Madripoor while they dodge hitmen and ninjas, and while the police authorities back in New York try to figure out how Gwen staged it all and otherwise act like morons for not figuring out that the obvious shady Murdock is behind it all. This is one idiot plot after another where the story only works if all the characters are complete morons. The Hellblazer number 11. So, what happens in this? They find a dancing shoe, but the other one is missing. Some soldiers get attacked by some black goo. Some black kids get chased around by some very scary people who apparently comes from a story that he told. And John Constantine makes a cameo in his own book. I have no freaking clue what this story is about. I can say that I enjoyed the brother and sister team that seemed to be able to pull villains from their book. However, I'm sorry guys, I was lost on this. This just did not make anything clear as to what was going on in the story. I read it all the way through, and still there was just nothing to it that hooked me, that made me say, wow, this is a good book and I can't wait for the next issue. Instead, I was just like, what the hell's going on and why should I care? Wonder Woman 77 meets the Bionic Woman number 5. This book was okay, I guess. The fembots have invaded Paradise Island looking for the metal Diana's bracelets are made from. Max the Bionic Dog and Diana's little sister Drusilla, who is not Donna Troy, remember, rescue a wounded Diana and Jamie Summers while the Amazons themselves go to war. I was a bit disappointed by this issue. It could have been a lot better. The dialogue came across as clunky, the art was drastically inconsistent, and in the end, the plot was about as thin as a piece of rice paper. There are better books out there, so yeah, I can't recommend this one too much. Wonder Woman number 25. So yeah, this is an interesting dog. So Wonder Woman is angry. Shows they're fighting Shaggy Man. She takes him down. She's bitchy to everybody, and they mention it. She goes to see her version of Lex Luthor, and she's angry. They notice that she's not carrying the lasso of truth, and she goes to visit the Fates, who tell her, hey, you're a good person. And then she's got the lasso again, magically, right next to her. I don't quite understand the point of the story that she needs to be told she's a good person to get the lasso back. Maybe I missed something in the last few issues, I don't know, but it just seems like, you know, the story was stupid. The ending to it, it wasn't good. Sorry guys, not good. The 3-star books. Now these are the ones that are average. They didn't elicit a response from us, good or bad. All new Guardians of the Galaxy Annual number 1. So this is the inevitable crossover with the whole Secret Empire mess. The Guardians are seeking to break a way through the force field surrounding the Earth and coming face to face with the fact that most alien civilizations see humans as vicious barbarians who are a danger to everyone. And when you go to the Brood for help, you know things are desperate. The story here is okay, but absolutely nothing special, and the artwork is not up to the usual standard. For an annual, this is really not the story I would have told. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad, it's just not that good. Amazing Spider-Man number 29. Spider-Man finally joins the Secret Empire storyline, except for he doesn't join it. This goes all the way back to April to the beginning. because they can't go, oh wait, here's what's been happening and let's jump into where the Secret Empire is now. So all of this is in the past. We're not seeing anything new. We're not getting any new Secret Empire information. This is the big problem that's been going on with this crossover. They just didn't time it well. I'm sorry, all books should be on the same page as far as this is concerned. I mean, narratively, this sucks. Although the book itself is not bad. I guess if you rearrange it to the proper timeline, it's not a poor story. And it's got Doc Ock trying to take control over Parker Industries since he's the one who started it. I can't hate the book for itself, but it's for its tie-in to Secret Empire. Secret Empire has so far ruined everything it's touched. Batgirl number 12. This issue featured a charming one-shot story involving a missing girl, a haunted swimming pool, and an overworked, trite, and cliched resolution that was this side of cringe-worthy to keep it from climbing any higher. Come on, how often have we seen the creepy older professor uses his position of authority to abuse his female student story before we accept that it's been done and move on? Or I don't know, at least occasionally make the creepy professor a woman just to balance the scales. The truth is, I could predict the outcome of this book halfway through, and after that, the cringy parts just got worse. It's not a bad book, but with so much cringe, it just keeps it down. Ben Reilly, The Scarlet Spider number 4, written by Peter David, drawn by Mark Bagley. These are some powerhouses of the comic book industry, and I was expecting a little bit more. Now, one thing I did notice about the books is there's 2 investigations, there's 2 clones, there's 2 assassins, so there should be some sort of mirroring of stories. However, I actually don't think that that was intended. I think this is a happy coincidence. And what it really ends up being is a book that is just very flat. And I wanted a little bit more meat and potatoes in the story, and instead it seems like it's all either reaction to what has happened before or setup to what is to come. So the book itself is actually nothing. Blue Beetle number 10. The final confrontation with Arion is here. Can Jamie Reyes, with the help of his friends, find the strength to defeat the demonic sorcerer from the past? Of course he can. This book is so cliche-riddled that you can see the end coming from about page 4. There's a lot of action here, but it's done in such a way that it reminds you of so many fights that were done so much better. The bad guy grandstands, the good guy wonder how they could ever win. It's something we've seen before. It's not done badly, it's just more of the same. After reading this, you're going to have no memory of it an hour later. I could see myself enjoying a comic book like The Defenders issue number 2 a lot more when I was a kid than now. And maybe it's because I've grown cynical, but I look at this incredibly safe comic with all the right cameos and guest appearances and think that this was made more of an advertisement for the upcoming TV show than it was as a comic book on its own. It just seems incredibly safe, incredibly put together, well put together, but not in the great art, great writing sense of the story, as in it's just a very corporate comic book. It's not bad. It's not going to offend you, and I think that's part of the problem. It just seems so, like I said, corporate. It seems just so middle of the road, like it was made to appeal to everyone, and in the end it appeals to no one. Star Wars Dr. Aphra number 8. The conclusion of the Screaming Citadel storyline. Luke Skywalker, having been infected with male parasite, gets in a mind fight with the Queen, assisted by the Jewel of Rur. There's some mild action and a lot of sitting around thinking and talking, but to be honest, there's not a lot to recommend in this issue. The story is ho-hum, the art is okay, the action is slow, and the ending comes all at once and out of nowhere. And the she's dead or is she ending is about as trite as they come. It's a disappointing ending for what was otherwise an enjoyable story. I Am Groot number 2. Now, the first issue was very cute and entertaining at the very least, so I was okay with picking up issue number 2. I thought, okay, let's see how this goes. You know, Groot gets separated from the Guardians of the Galaxy in another dimension, and he's trying to find his way home. And issue number 2 really shows the flaw of making a main character out of a character who can only say 3 words. You have to surround him with interesting characters in order to have him shine. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen here. As a matter of fact, he's just passing through, so really the characters we see in this book are just MacGuffins and set up for the next issue and is an inevitable return to the Guardians of the Galaxy. In the end, this is not a bad book. It just is not a very good one. Written by Christopher Hastings, drawn by a guy named Flavano. I hope the next issue is as entertaining as the first. Jean Grey number 3, written by Dennis Hopeless and drawn by Victor Ibanez, or Ibanez, one of those two. So I'm reading this book and all of a sudden I realize I am focusing on the wrong part of the story, because as Jean Grey and Namor are trying to run away and fight this big sea monster, all I'm thinking is, how is the depth of the ocean not crushing Jean Grey to a pulp? I mean, she's got a face mask, but that's it. There's not even lines drawn showing she's got a telekinetic shield up or anything. It's just a face mask. And she's in the ocean deep enough for this big-ass thing to go through. Otherwise, it's just more pussification of Namor the Submariner, and there's useless dialogue. The same dialogue that went on in number 2 about the Phoenix Force coming after her and what she should do. So basically, we're reading the same book twice, except for this one's underwater. Justice League of America number 9, the end of The Man from Monster Valley. The Justice League prevents Mason from taking his revenge out on the human monsters who slaughtered his family. The book is a good message, which is the wrong thing done for the right reasons, or is still the wrong thing. But the book drops this moral on your head like a frickin' anvil from the sky. None of the heroes seem to be in character here. Everything seems stilted and the story doesn't flow very well at all. And on top of it all, the art is so inconsistently done, you're going to think that the multiple artists worked on this issue. You're going to have to actually work to finish this issue, because halfway through you'll be wondering just why you're reading it again. It's not a horrible story, it's not a good story. Read it if you want to, but we can't recommend it. Edge of the Venomverse number 1. The idea behind this is interesting. X-23 combines with the Venom symbiote and then later uses the symbiote to power up a street gang that befriends her. It's a story that definitely has potential, and there are in fact some clever moments here, but otherwise this story is just muddled and confusing, and the artwork just isn't satisfactory for anything. In the end, I can't really recommend the story beyond it's not a bad read, but for something that's supposedly this big, it should be more than that. Poe Dameron number 16, written by Charles Soule and drawn by Angel Unzueta. I hope I said that right, sorry. So Poe and the Resistance finally confront the First Order over the fuel tanker. They're trying to steal all of their fuel. And the commander of the First Order ship is getting odds from this, not a robot, but just this robotic-like guy who is telling him that basically Poe alone is going to kick their ass, much less Poe plus Resistance. It ends up being entertaining. It starts slow, I have to say, but it ends up very entertaining, and I enjoyed it. I don't know if I can recommend it, though, because I am literally saying at the half-point mark this book becomes worth it. So there are 11 pages worth of, Lord Almighty, could you please get through this boring-ass dialogue? Teen Titans number 9. This issue was completely and totally average in every way. There was some scenes of people using their powers. There was some conversations. There was a dinner scene. Damian Wayne was a dick. Kid Flash announced that he was going to join Deathstroke's team. Something DC totally spoiled last month when they first released ads for the new Defiant series, by the way. None of it was bad, but also none of it was really interesting. And the coolest thing about the issue is that Jackson Hyde got his powers from his mom and not a mysterious supervillain dad. Your issue needs work. And Black Manta is in it. This seriously needs to work on not being so bleh in the future. The 4-star books. Now we're getting to the good stuff. The stuff we can actually recommend. Action Comics number 982, we continue the Revenge. So you have the Revenge Squad, which I have to say is the most impressive lineup so far. planning their next course of action. In this case, they decide that if they attack the Fortress of Solitude, they can steal its technologies and use it for a myriad of reasons, and they do. And it's a very exciting fight. It's a good lead up. The dialogue is just fine as we get to the final scene, the final battle. And I like the twist at the end. Although it's a little bit over the top, it seems to be exactly where the book needs to be headed. And I liked it. I got to admit, I enjoyed the tension, and the final panel makes me really want to read the next chapter. Batman Beyond number 9. Terry McGinnis and Damian Wayne have it out over their unresolved rivalry as the sons, adopted or natural, of Bruce Wayne, while Bruce himself wonders just what the heck happened to Damian to make him follow Ra's al Ghul's lead. In the meantime, Terry deals with the battlesuit's AI, which wants him to continually escalate past the point of no return. It's an exciting story, and the action of the rolling fight scenes keep you entertained. There's just enough dialogue and narration to get you through the story told, to the point that most of the story is told in pictures, something that surprisingly doesn't happen all that often anymore. Cable number 2. Now, Cable continues to be fun. I like the time travel aspect of it. I love the fact that there's somebody going into the past selling futuristic weapons to stop Cable whenever he arrives hunting this guy. Like I said, it's just a fun book. Written by James Robinson, drawn by Carlos Pacheco. I think I said the name right. It looks good and it's well written. I wouldn't say it's smartly written, but it is definitely trying, and basically, like I said, it's just fun. I'm going to overuse that term. You're not going to hurt any brain cells as you read it, but you're definitely going to enjoy it while you do. In the end, it's basically a Roadrunner cartoon with Cable being the Wile E. Coyote chasing the Roadrunner through time. DC Superhero Girls, Out of the Bottle, Chapter 6. This is the story where the DC Superhero Girls had to come up with something artistic, and Harley Quinn used some of Professor June Moon's special ink, and their art came to life, except because June Moon is also the Enchantress, the art is bad, and now they have to basically fight their creations. And it's surprisingly well done for DC Superhero Girls. Now, mind you, this is always a fun book, but this time it actually seems to be written up rather than written down, because I do have to say it really does pander to the younger crowd, except for this one I think it's allowing the younger crowd to stretch and maybe actually think about things and definitely use the imagination more than other chapters have done in the past. So I can recommend this, especially if you have young kids. Deadpool vs. Punisher number 5. The finale of this miniseries begins with, I kid you not, a multiple-page explanation of just how it's possible for Deadpool to shoot the Punisher in the head and how the Punisher could have survived. It felt like one of those overextended, unlikely explanations for the coincidence that allow the hero to never die in the old 1930s pulp adventure serials. I didn't like them then, and I'll be honest, its use here turned me off also. But the rest of the story is amazing. Great action and actual deep and sincere discussion about the nature of evil and how trauma, when your young man turns you into a monster, and whether some people are monsters all along. Sure, the opening is weak, but the rest of the book is just as fun as the rest of the series has been. Injustice 2, Chapter 12. Supergirl has arrived in Kandak, and Black Adam found her, and he is having her moved around from sunlight spot to sunlight spot to make sure she gains her strength, because he wants to use her, and her muscles is atrophied, so he wants her to build up her strength. He's telling her all sorts of lies, like Superman was the big hero of Injustice Gods Among Us, and Batman was the villain, trying to make sure that people suffered, and she's believing it. So Black Adam's the big star of the show right now, and it's just a fun and exciting book with some really good art. Can't recommend this more. I'm really sorry that this is the way I'm getting the story and not through the game. I'm hoping they're a little bit different. But otherwise, like I said, it's really good. I get them like this, the chapters where it's only 99 cents, I enjoy it this way because it's such a fun and easy read. Mother Panic number 8, part 2 of Victim Complex. Violet uses deduction and her raw intelligence to figure out why the body bag killer, for lack of a better name, that's not what they call him in the book, just what I'm calling him here, is selecting his victims. And while she is dealing with the fact that her cybernetics is slowly killing her, or at least leaving her crippled, she realizes that she herself is among his target group. Originally, we didn't think much of this book, but in the last cut, it proved impressively. The art was still a little sketchy, but it does sort of fit the story, which surprisingly has been getting better and better as the issues progress. If you can't find last issue, this story might be a good time to start reading Mother Panic. Occupy Avengers number 8 is kind of a strange duck. The story goes, it starts off, Hydra is stealing the food, which I've got to say, the attack on socialism that the Secret Empire has become is pretty impressive. It both embraces and attacks it. It's amazing that it's got such a dichotomy. Anyway, in this story you have Hydra taking food from people, and then you have the Occupy Avengers, dumbest name in the world, save the food, and then you have the rest of the book planning on how they're going to get food to people. So it starts off great, has a weird soft middle, and then it ends soft, but it still remains interesting somehow. So it's bizarre. I can recommend this book. It's fun, but don't expect much after the first 5 or 6 pages in the way of action or excitement. Suicide Squad number 20. The death of Rick Flag has removed the humanizing influence from Harley Quinn, and she's beginning to regress to her less stable, more serial killish personality. And this all happens just as Amanda Waller needs to pick a new field commander for the squad. The entire issue is what is known as a bottle episode. A trick TV series used to save money. You only use the main cast, you don't have them do anything exciting, and there's usually a lot of talking and some deep, slow burning character development. And it all takes place in a couple of rooms. This is exactly what happens in this issue. It's actually pretty well written. The characterization is done very well, and the only real problem is how Waller resolves the need for a new field commander. Or rather, who she picks. Supergirl being Super number 4, Chapter 4 of Who I Am. After rescuing her fellow Kryptonian Tan-On from Star Labs where he was being vivisected, Kara has to decide where her home actually lies. Does she follow Tan-On in his goal of restoring Krypton, or does she follow the ideals of her human parents? There's quite a bit of character development for everyone, even the villains, and some surprise revelations as well. There are some excellent touches, like when Kara asks if Krypton is a democracy and Tan-On non-answers by saying they have governing bodies, that make this book better than a 3-star, but the fight scenes are not really going to excite you. It's the character interaction that elevates this book. The Flash number 25 extra-sized anniversary issue. This is a good comic book. It's Running Scared Part 1, so it's starting a new story, and it does deal with the Flash and the Reverse Flash. And one of the best things about it is it actually takes a few pages to introduce the characters and to catch up everybody on their history. So even if you're straight off the street, you're going to understand everything that's going on, at least for the most part. And after that, it's basically the villain monologuing for most of the book, but telling him what he did to get to the moment, and it doesn't tell the upcoming plans, just says, you know, why they're in trouble that they are right now. And it ends up being quite a cool book for it. Great dialogue, great imagery, great art, and good, strong story. The Totally Awesome Hulk. And, you know, at first I didn't like the fact that William Stryker was back in this whole storyline. I remember him being killed in the very first God Loves, Man Kills book, which is a damn classic and should not be touched. But hey, you know, Marvel does these things. But actually, I'm reading this and thinking this is pretty cool. It's actually, it kind of harkens back to those days of the Claremont X-Men years. Now, I'm not saying it's as good as that, but at least it's as entertaining and it is dramatic. You know, they're following some of the same themes. And, you know, these days, that's a big plus for a Marvel comic, to actually be more deep than a Dixie Cup. And considering it's starring Amadeus Cho, color me surprised. So yeah, this is a book I'm surprised to be recommending. The 5-star books, the best of the best, for at least this week. These are the ones that are at the top of the heap. Astro City number 45. What happens when it turns out that a person isn't a person but the literal incarnation of cultural change? And even worse, what happens when that cultural change is about to make a downturn? The title of this book is When You Find Out What Happens to Glamourix. You'll totally freak, and you know what? I totally freaked. The origin and the true nature of Glamourix, the disco-themed mind-expanding music and light show superhero who helped protect Astro City of the 1970s, is revealed, and boy is this a doozy. Glamourix was the perfect incarnation of the 1970s feeling of anything goes and easy sex and hedonism, but after that would come the seething anger, dissatisfaction, and discord expressed by the Ramones, Patti Smith, and the Sex Pistols. It's a lead up to what looks like an amazing story, and as always, it's worth the read. Batman Elmer Fudd Special number 1. Want to know an absolutely epic way to begin your cartoon noir comic book? Have Elmer Fudd narrate the first couple of pages in that grim and gritty way Batman does it so well. Sometimes the weighing comes down so hard that you forget that you've ever been dry. Isn't it awesome? The entire book is filled with it. Bugs Bunny is a low-rent killer for hire with a penchant for cracking bad jokes. Foghorn, Leghorn, and Yosemite Sam as card players. Tweety Bird is a dwarfed crime lord. And even reference to Michigan J. Frog himself, for crying out loud. And it takes itself just serious enough for it not to be corny at all. Batman in the Shadow number 3. I love the covers. I'm gonna get that out of the way. Every one of them is just a striking image. And I cannot tell you anything about this. Well, okay. Joker talks to the Stag. Alfred Pennyworth talks to a captured Shadow. And at some point, Batman fights the Joker and the Stag. That's all I can tell you, because the rest of it is all spoiler. And I really don't like giving spoilers nor receiving. However, I will say this, Holy Toledo, this is just a great book. And it's got a mid-twist and an ending twist that will just put you on the edge of your seat. It's just a great story, guys, and it has some cool action in it, but it's really the dialogue that carries this book along and makes it as good as it is. Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps 23. This issue is primary filler. It's there to carry the reader over from 22 to 24, but what great filler it is. I mean, we get all kinds of interesting development here. Guy Gardner and his Yellow Lantern partner Arkillo hold a wrecking ball, which Arkillo mistranslates into a dance, but with more destruction. John Stewart finds out that a Green Lantern did in fact murder a Yellow Lantern, and Sornak Natu discovers something she didn't want to know about the deceased villain Sarko. And you're going to finish this issue and immediately want the next one. Lucifer 19, an end of beginning, the epic conclusion of the Blood in the Street story. This story, I admit, takes a lot of work. Given that there's about a dozen characters and each one is important to the plot, each one plays a different role. Also, the goals and motivations of all the characters isn't always clear, and in some cases they're actually obscured and hidden and lied about. But in the end, Lucifer and his allies defeat Inazami, and her quest to own hell restores Mazikeen to her throne, return to heaven, and clean that place up, and then start rebuilding Lux. It just goes to show that in a universe of manipulative bastards, there is no manipulative bastard as manipulative or bastardly as Lucifer. The Punisher number 13. This story was just great. It's springtime in New York and Frank Castle has come home. Turns out that while he's been away, a group of ignorant boys from a local private school stumbled into one of his hidden safe houses, and one of them stole a gun and pawned it for extra money. The rest of the issue is the story of Frank Castle getting his gun back. It's filled with colorful characters doing colorful things, graphic violence that isn't gratuitous, and in the end, he gets his gun back. This is a great alternative to those gritty, intense, let's take down an entire mafia family style stories while still feeling true to the classic portrayals of the Punisher. Well, it's official. There's not a bad book in the bunch of DC and Looney Tunes team-ups. Jonah Hex and Yosemite Sam. So, Yosemite Sam strikes it rich on a gold mine, and he hires Jonah Hex to help him protect it. Along the way, Yosemite Sam saves Foghorn Leghorn's life, and because he owes him, he also teams up to help protect the gold mine. And just seeing a 6-foot-tall, realistically drawn Foghorn Leghorn is worth the price of admission. However, the rest of the story is just as sharp. And it should be considered they got the eternal Hex writer Jimmy Palmiotti to do the story. It's just a ton of fun. And if you have not been checking out these crossover books, please do. You will not be disappointed. So there you go. Those are our reviews. And let's see where we stand. Well, you know what? Okay, Marvel lost. And they're going to, so long as they're doing Secret Empire and their stupid politics that they try to shove down our throats. And it's not even like they're writing a good story with Secret Empire. That's one of the biggest downfalls of the whole thing. And it's amazing that these DC Looney Tunes things turned out as well as they did. I'm just shocked. And just for the records, DC Comics had 2 1-stars, 5 2-stars, 4 3-stars, 8 4-stars, 6 5-stars for a score of 86, and there were 25 comics making the average 3.44. Marvel, on the other hand, had 4 1-stars, 5 2-stars, 9 3-stars, 4 4-stars, and 1 5-star. With a score of 62, in 23 comic books, their average was 2.70. Only once has Marvel taken the win, so here's a question to ask you. Leave the comment in below on what books you would cancel to make Marvel better. Maybe they're just releasing too many bad books. I myself, I'd stop Secret Empire where it stands and just act like it never happened. Because that has been a cluster ever since it began. It had a good 0 issue, and from there, it was nothing but a soapbox, and it's horrible. But what do you think about our reviews and about the books that you would cancel to improve Marvel? Let us know in the comments below. Also, if you like videos like this, please click like, click share again, and for a 3rd time, just for good measure. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and that notification bell so you don't miss anything. And don't forget, we've got a Patreon page, so go on over. I Love Comics on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Toss $1 into the till. Good things are happening. And we are producing some Patreon-only videos for everybody, so you can check those out, as well as some upcoming polls you're not going to want to miss. And I'd like to thank the patrons who already donated. We do have an anonymous, thank you very much. And also Sky Roseboom, Jesse Novacek, and the Patriot Cat. Thank you for helping us out. And for everybody else and them, thank you very much for watching.